Agent Source of Police, how can I help? My daughter's gone missing. No one has seen her, no. No. We phoned round the family. All her friends have contacted us and asked where she is, and none of them know. What's her name? Rebecca Watts.
Timid teenager Becky Watts was getting back on track following struggles with her mental health and body image. A brand new school, a close-knit friendship group, and a devoted new boyfriend. This was until she vanished on the morning of February 19, 2015. The investigation that followed would go on to uncover a pattern of abuse by a trusted family member, microscopic signs of blood spatter, and the eerie realization that her lifeless body was much closer to home than anyone could have imagined. Rebecca Marie Watts, known as Becky, was born in 1998 in Bristol, in the UK. Becky's parents separated before she was born. She lived with her mother, Tanya, and her older brother, Dan. At just 3 weeks old, the siblings were taken into care following concerns of neglect. Becky and her brother soon moved in with their father, Darren Galsworthy, and his partner, Angie. Angie had a son, Nathan Matthews, who lived with his grandparents but would visit the house often and was treated like a beloved big brother to the siblings. Becky was painfully shy, going to extremes to avoid strangers. Her father would later tell the media that she would rather walk than take a bus, so she didn't have to talk to the driver or other passengers. Becky and Angie had an instant connection. Angie was sympathetic to her stepdaughter's aversion to people, even going so far as to volunteer as an unpaid teaching assistant so she could be on hand to protect Becky at school whenever she felt troubled. Her transition to high school was challenging. She was relentlessly bullied. Angie tried to get help from the school to address the aggressive behavior, but it only made the playground worse for Becky. Desperate for help, Angie contacted the Children and Young People Services, reporting that Becky was struggling to go to school and was anxious about being outside the family home. Authorities interviewed the family together, concluding that Becky would be considered a child in need and assigning a support worker. She told her support worker she felt scared about many things, including going to school and being out alone. She claimed these fears were prompted by reading about abduction cases and watching graphic horror films. There was little to no investigation into the cause of her worries, and authorities did not look into relationships with her extended family outside of the home. Had she received the support she needed, they would perhaps have deducted that the root cause of her anxieties was much more sinister. Becky's stepbrother, Nathan Matthews, was much older. When he was 20 and Becky was 8, she claimed that Matthews had touched her leg inappropriately. In the years that followed, he would go on to tease her relentlessly, make derogatory comments about her weight, and jump out to scare her at any opportunity. He would even describe to her in graphic detail how he would one day go about killing her. The family chalked his behavior up to a morbid sense of humor and did nothing to prevent or discourage him. His bullying, along with her traumatic school experiences, greatly impacted Becky's mental health and body image, leading to her anorexia nervosa diagnosis and referral to an eating disorder clinic. She was taught by the hospital education service. She was reluctant to return to mainstream education, where she knew the bullying would continue. She claimed someone was threatening to post illicit photos of her online. Still apparently fearful of the repercussions, she didn't want to involve the police. Referral to Barnado's Child Sexual Exploitation Project was discussed, but there was confusion over where responsibility for the process would lie, which resulted in her claims going uninvestigated and nothing further came of it. Throughout her ordeal, Matthews consistently attributed her struggles as flagrantly attention-seeking. When Becky was 13, Angie was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a degenerative condition affecting the central nervous system. Becky took the opportunity to repay her stepmother for the love and support they'd shared through the years and was heavily involved in her care. With small household tasks becoming impossible for Angie, Darren and Becky would take turns to take her out for walks in the wheelchair and share the chores. Dan Watts and Nathan Matthews had left the family home when Becky was 16. She continued to live with her father and ailing stepmother. Matthews remained close by, starting a young family with his girlfriend Shauna Hoare. The couple had a daughter together, and Hoare soon took on the role of Angie's full-time carer. Having recently moved schools, Becky had begun to overcome her struggles. She found a small, close-knit group of like-minded friends and even started seeing a nice boy. She appointed herself an unofficial school counselor, mentoring other kids struggling with bullying, a selfless and caring act indicative of the compassionate young woman she was. Becky's boyfriend, Luke, was well liked by Darren and Angie. He treated her respectfully, and the couple were besotted with each other. In Luke's phone, Becky's number was saved as My Princess. On Thursday, February 19th in the afternoon, Becky was due to meet up with her boyfriend. Luke texted her midday, letting her know he could hang out together. She waited to reply. He left it half an hour, assuming she must be busy. He found it unusual when she didn't respond to his multiple follow-up texts. Still, he thought there must be a reasonable explanation. Later that evening, he visited her house to see her in person. It was 5 p.m. Becky wasn't home. Angie, Matthews, and Hoare informed Luke they hadn't seen her all afternoon. They had assumed she was with him. Luke had last seen Becky 2 days before on a Tuesday night. The young couple had played video games in her room, and she was in good spirits when he left. She attended a party with her friend Adam on Wednesday night, then went back to his house for video games and takeout. There was nothing out of the ordinary about either evening. Thursday morning, she returned home from her friend's house. Around 11 a.m., Angie left home for a doctor's appointment. That would be the last time she would ever see her beloved stepdaughter alive. Matthews, Hoare, and their daughter arrived shortly after Angie left for her appointment. They didn't see Becky, but they could hear music blasting from her bedroom. At 11:30, the couple heard footsteps on the stairs and the front door slam. They assumed Becky had gone out, the stomping and door slamming leading them to believe she was likely in a bad mood. It was uncharacteristic of Becky to cancel plans without notice. It was also unusual for her not to tell Angie or her father who she was going out to see or where she was going. She was very sensible, and her lack of communication seemed unusually careless. Everyone became concerned when there was still no word from her by Friday afternoon. Her friends gathered at her home. They checked her social media and tried calling and texting, but her phone went to voicemail. They all agreed that Becky hadn't appeared anything other than happy and carefree in the days leading up to her disappearance. Becky's devices were nowhere to be found, but the charging cables were still in her room. A few clothes were missing, but her wallet and handbag remained. Darren searched the neighborhood to no avail and finally called the police. Police were unconcerned, assuming she was another runaway, likely to return home soon. Darren continued to search, calling Becky's biological mother, her brother, and anyone else he could think of. He also took to Facebook to implore the public to keep a lookout for his missing daughter. A full investigation began only when national media picked up Darren's desperate pleas for help on social media. On Monday, a press conference was held. It told a compelling story of a visibly distraught and devoted father, desperate for the safe return of his little girl.
Bex, if you're watching this, please come home. We love you so much, and whatever you think, we can sort anything out. Doesn't matter. Just come home.
More than 100 locals volunteered to search for Becky, handing out flyers as they went. Her friends were questioned, and all her social media accounts and private messages were checked, with nothing seeming suspicious. Dive teams searched local bodies of water, while over 500 officers searched derelict buildings and outhouses. It was the most significant case of missing persons in the country's history. Police searched the family home. Forensic investigators noticed a minute, almost imperceptible, red substance on the doorframe of Becky's bedroom, along with a partial fingerprint. Testing confirmed it to be blood, but they would have to wait to find out who it belonged to. Given neither Matthews or Hoare reported anything unusual upstairs before Becky left home on that fateful Thursday morning, it seemed improbable that the blood could be related to her disappearance. Unless, of course, they were lying. From an early age, Matthews suffered from fibromyalgia, a painful rheumatic condition that made him feel inadequate. He studied to become an electrician but quit early on in his apprenticeship and worked as a part-time delivery driver for several fast food restaurants and supermarkets. He was short-tempered and prone to aggressive outbursts. One of 8 children, Hoare was taken into care as a child before moving home to her mother at the age of 13. When she met and began a relationship with Matthews, she was 15 and he was in his early 20s. Her mother disliked Matthews. He was domineering, obnoxious, and vulgar, demanding sexual favors from her teenage daughter in return for anything she asked of him. The hatred was mutual. Matthews told Hoare's mother that she would never see her daughter again, and the pair moved to a Modern Housing Association terraced house, where they had a baby girl together. Police became suspicious of the couple. Matthews and Hoare made no attempt to conceal their mutual contempt for Becky, telling the police she was selfish and manipulative. The pair didn't join in with the search party. During her interview, Hoare giggled and seemed unconcerned about the missing child. Their stories regarding the morning of the disappearance matched too well. They were rehearsed and overly specific, leading authorities to question their integrity. Suspicions were confirmed when the bloody fingerprint discovered on Becky's doorframe was identified as belonging to Matthews. A little over a week after her disappearance, on Saturday, February 28th, both Matthews and Hoare were taken in for further questioning, and their house was searched. Their home was cluttered and dirty except for the bathtub, which glistened, evidently having recently undergone a comprehensive cleaning, in stark contrast to the rest of the home. Forensics proceeded to search the house from top to bottom, a challenging task on account of the squalor and filth. They came across receipts from a local DIY store, undeniable evidence that would confirm their suspicions. The receipts were for an electric saw, goggles, and a mask. Matthews can be seen on CCTV footage pondering his purchases, comparing saw options before settling on the one he would go on to use to dismember the corpse of his murdered stepsister. On Tuesday, March 3, 2015, at 10:26 p.m., Nathan gave a statement to the police via his lawyer. It read, "I, Nathan Charles Matthews, accept that I am responsible for the death of Rebecca Watts. On February 19th, I attended Crown Hill, St. George, Bristol with my girlfriend Shauna Hoare. In my car, I had a large bag, a stun device, handcuffs, tape, and a mask. I had developed an idea to scare Rebecca by kidnapping her. I wanted to scare her and teach her a lesson. I believe that she was selfish and her behavior toward my mother was a risk to her health." A few minutes after arriving, Shauna said she wanted a cigarette and went into the garden. I went to the boot of my car, took out a bag that contained the items, and then went upstairs to the landing before knocking on Rebecca's door. She replied, "What?" or "Hello." And I said, "Can I see you a minute?" I was unsure which order happened, but I used the items to subdue Rebecca. During the short struggle, my mask slipped, and Rebecca could see my face. This caused me to panic, and I strangled her while she was partially in the bag. Police heard that Matthews had parked at the house, knowing his mother would be out at her doctor's appointment. The apparent scare prank was ill-conceived, with Matthews claiming he planned to bundle Becky into the bag, take her to a wooded area, and using the mask to conceal his identity, tell her she needed to be more grateful toward her family before leaving there to make her own way home. When Becky had been suffocated, he zipped her into the bag and threw her into the boot of his car, along with her laptop, phone, tablet, and a few of her clothes. His car containing her lifeless body was still parked outside the home when Becky's boyfriend, Luke, would later come looking for her. While Matthews made a full confession, continuing to claim her death was a prank gone wrong, there was not enough evidence to charge Hoare with anything more severe than perverting the course of justice. Matthews continued to protest Hoare's innocence. Detectives carried on looking into Hoare. They uncovered evidence in deleted messages recovered from her phone. There was a conversation between the couple where they gleefully discussed abducting a young girl and keeping her in their attic as a sex slave. They had also shared pornographic images of child abuse featuring children similar age to Becky. Matthews was obsessed, and Hoare supported him wholeheartedly, texting her partner about bumping into a sexy schoolgirl and regretting not bringing her home for them to play with. Following the murder, the couple had watched a YouTube video called "Do You Want to Hide a Body?" Taking careful note of the advice in the video, they were caught on CCTV in various shops purchasing equipment to dispose of Becky's body. Matthews claimed it was he alone who dismembered the body and packed her into multiple bags and suitcases. He claimed it was his plan to bribe a friend into storing the packages for him, hiding them in a shed on the pretense that he'd return for them later. Matthews paid £10,000 for the privilege, which apparently didn't strike his friend as strange. Hoore's DNA was found on the inside of one of the bags containing parts of Becky's body, and on one of the masks found bundled up with her. There was also a top belonging to Hoare, soaked in Becky's blood and stuffed into one of the bags. Hoare continued to protest her innocence, and Matthews took sole responsibility. Hoare was sentenced to 17 years, while Matthews was sentenced to life with a minimum term of 33 years. While reading the sentencing, the judge couldn't help but tear up, having sat through the harrowing and gruesome details of the monstrous disregard Matthews had demonstrated toward his stepsister and the perverse circumstances leading to her death. Even though authorities had years before concluded Becky was a child in need, nothing was done to further support her. Following her murder, there was a review that recognized not enough was done to understand Becky's home life. It failed to explore the broader family dynamic. The study concluded that more focus is required on the needs of adolescents. But by this time, it was too late for Becky. In September 2023, Hoare was released from prison after serving just half of her sentence. The residents of her shared hostel have since reported that she doesn't seem to have a care in the world and has been telling everyone how thrilled she is to be out. She's also been boasting her licensing conditions are pretty soft. Her release sparked outrage, especially from Becky's family. According to the Ministry of Justice, offenders like Shauna Hoare face some of the strictest license conditions and can be put back behind bars if they break the rules at any point. We've also since changed the law so the most heinous offenders face longer than ever in prison. Hoare received a fixed-term sentence in court, meaning she was automatically released at the halfway point of her sentence. The Ministry of Justice insists that under new legislation, offenders like her would now do at least 2/3 of their sentence. Over the years, both Matthews and Hoare have been subjected to attacks by fellow inmates. Following reports of Matthews having boiling hot butter thrown in his face, Darren Galsworthy commented, "Karma's a bitch." Matthews remains behind bars and will continue to do so until he is in his 60s. Becky's brutal murder shook the UK. She continues to be remembered with a tree, a wooden bench, and an art sculpture erected in her hometown to honor her. Her memory is forever in the hearts of the people of Bristol. Thanks for watching. Don't miss out on our next story. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to get notified whenever we upload. Join our community today. Did you like the episode? Please give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts down below. We love reading your comments and hearing what you think.